All right, Peter and Jackson, let's go through your throw here. I think that there's a few things that we can work on that can really help you out. More so on the side of things that you could start to train that would really benefit you in the throw, in terms of just muscle activation and stuff like that. To me, there's a huge amount of correlation between having the right body for the throw and the right muscle activation for the throw, as well as having the right mechanics for the throw. I think those two go hand in hand. So I think some of your bigger thing is on the muscle side and starting to train the right muscles to be firing, more so than on the mechanics side not having the correct mechanics. But we'll start going through the throw here. So the big thing that I think is when you're stepping, even though you get a wide step, you really don't get this knee around. Okay, I like that you keep the hip closed, but because you don't get this knee around, watch when you start to throw, you put a lot of rotation in your body, right? And you kind of open up a good amount in that shoulder, and just everything kind of flies up. And so you're very rotational as a thrower. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you need to be training anti-rotation in your actual training with, using bands. And I'll show you some exercises that will train anti-rotation or preventing rotation. Just because if you're a very rotational type of athlete, you need to strengthen the antagonist of that, which would be the anti-rotation. And that's just, I'm always about strengthening the decelerators. The decelerators is what help you accelerate, okay? So that's the first thing is when you go and step and you'd want to even if you don't make the mechanical changes, to me, and you just stay with the rotation, you still need to do the anti-rotation to strengthen that. But to even become more efficient in itself, when you step and you land, you really want that knee to be in a position where it's right over the ankle. And what that does, it makes it so when you push off, this leg is able to come more straight through. Okay, and even though you end up being able to get it straight through because you get so much rotation in the hip, it's not because you're pushing off of this back leg, it's because you're externally rotating so much in the front hip. And what ends up happening is when you use a lot of that front leg, you get the hyperextension or the straightening of the front knee as you're coming through. And if we look at this one, you can see, even when it stopped, you can see how it's straightening the front knee. And this is how I know you use too much front leg. It's just because it's all this extension. Problem with that is then you stop your hips. Watch how you're coming through, and you get, you're pulling with your front leg to get your body to come forward there. And then as you're coming through, you stop the flow of those hips coming forward, and you end up kind of standing, or you end up being kind of straight up in those hips, okay, and really onto your toes. When you finish here, you should finish more down into your heels. This is like a golfing thing, and I try to go from different sports and get different types of rotation. And one of the big things that golfers do is when they come through onto that front leg, they're taught to really push down into that heel, and that's because when you push down that heel, you can better absorb all that rotation, that force coming forward. And so when you're going onto that front leg, and you're going more onto your toe, you just don't get to absorb all that force as well, and that makes it so you create some imbalance, and you see this imbalance here on the ankle. Watch at the end where you're kind of collapse in that foot. So one of the things that we're going to work on too is going to be just overall control of the foot. I think you're a little bit more flat-footed. I think you have some balance issues, and when you have a hard time balancing in that front leg, this right leg, then it's going to be hard to effectively produce force onto that onto the leg. And I think right now you have some balance issues, and I think we can help you in addressing that. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about would be, we'll go back here, is as you're coming through, you start out in a good position here, right? And you're in a good athletic spot. But the first thing that you start doing as you step and you bring up the ball is the whole time, if you watch your body, you're just moving backwards. So you're moving this way, and you're just kind of standing up more and more and more, and you're starting to round in this or extend in the back. And you end up really, and when you throw, you end up everything's kind of coming over here more. So it's just like this constant, you start out in a good spot, and then from here, you're leaning back. You can see all your weight just shift right onto your heels right away. And then your back starts to extend. You end up standing straight up. And it's just not that a good athletic position to be creating that rotational force. It's like another good thing that I got some good information from would be like on boxing and punching, right? Those guys, they stay fairly neutral in terms of head height the entire time that they're going through their punch, because they need to be able to punch real quick and then get back and be able to throw another punch. So they're not doing a lot of, standing up as they're going through their punch. And we can see with you the whole time your head's raising, right? And so that's telling me that you're just you're losing a lot of that core strength and that ground reaction type of force production because you're standing up too much. We need to make it so you can stay a little bit more grounded, and as I do think that at the end you want to be in a good upright position, but we want to get there by pushing off that back leg and really making that the standing up position rather than leaning back to get there. And that's really what it seems like you're doing here, and then you end up getting that hyperextension. So what will help you get better here is just getting more core strength. The core strength will make it so your spine stays much more even, and then when you get that good push off of that back leg, it'll be more of that leg come in straight through. You get that hip in the right position by opening up that leg a little bit more. You'll feel a lot better pushing off that back leg as well, because you'll feel the difference between, okay, I'm not pulling in now with my front leg, I'm really doing a better job of just pushing off of that back leg, and I'm controlling my spine, keeping my core active as I'm going through. And what we're going to do for that is just going to be some kettlebell bottoms up press, because when you do that, one, you build up your shoulder strength, which I do think you need some shoulder strength just because you allow that ball to get a little bit too far behind you here, right? And so there's some weakness there in the shoulder, at least in the back part of the shoulder. I think you use a lot of your pec, the front part of your shoulder. But then also what it'll do is it'll make it so when you're going up overhead, you'll feel yourself start to hyperextend, and you'll start to be able to control that by having more core activation. And I'll explain kind of that whole process in the actual video. Okay, so 3 things that we need to focus on here. One, when you step, making it so you step and get that foot to, or that knee to be right over your foot, to make it so now you can go and push straight through with those hips rather than creating so much rotation right there in the actual throw. And we're going to work on some anti-rotational type exercises in order to do that. We also need to work on balance and your front foot control, so then as you're transitioning onto that front leg, you can better control it and don't create that hyperextension in the leg, and also just having better reaction with the feet and being able to push off of the feet and that foot strength. That'll improve everything. It's not just going to be a quarterback improving thing. This will just improve how you just move in general, and how you run, and just how you overall just react with the ground. I think that the foot is very, very overlooked. That's the only thing that's touching the ground all the time, and we don't do enough time, in my opinion, of strengthening it and making sure that that is an excellent joint, even though it's always touching the ground. Okay. The last thing is going to be the core to shoulder relationship. We need to make it so you're not leaning back as much and getting into that hyperextension. We also need to make it so you don't get too far back behind with that ball there, and make it so you're using all that pec minor. And instead you make it so we can get more just activation through your rotator cuff. So that's everything.